Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Tatiana Antonella Beja. I'm the founder and managing director at Gumbuk, a social enterprise dedicated to accelerate sustainability and climate action in the UAE and beyond. I don't know how familiar you are with Gumbuk. We started back in 2009, and at that time we were not talking about sustainability or climate change. We were talking about going green. And the way to engage with the local population and the private sector, public sector, was actually to start working on awareness. Awareness because at that time, it was more about the Western world. When we were talking about protecting the environment, the narrative was about polar bears and reducing the heating. But for the Arab world, challenges and necessities were very, very different. We were talking about cooling, and we were talking about a desert environment, which there was not much awareness at that time. The way we started the awareness was by tree planting. And now you're going to ask me, why are you talking about tree planting when we're here for the oceans? And the link is actually that in order to green the desert, to green our beautiful cities here in the UAE and in the region, we do need a lot of water. And we desalinize the water using the ocean, a very precious resource. And desalination does have an impact on the ocean, on the marine environment. So the awareness started by, yes, let's green our cities with indigenous species that don't need much water because we can reduce the impact on our ocean. In the past 20 years, the salinity here has gone up, some people say up to 13%, and some projections talk about having the next Dead Sea due to all the desalination that is happening around here. So there is a strong, strong focus on our impact living in the UAE, building in the UAE, and thriving in the UAE and in the region on the ocean. Back in June 2023, we actually launched the first ever MENA Ocean Summit. It was an incredible, I would say, initiative putting together and bringing together so many different partners. First of all, it was under the patronage of the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, and we had representatives from all different sectors and governments. We had the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi as well. We had different representatives from Ras Al Khaimah. And of course, private sector, we had from the maritime industry, logistics, fisheries. This event really highlighted a lot of different challenges that we face in the UAE, but most of all, a will to actually take action. And this is definitely what transpires from the UAE vision and strategies from both private sector and public sector. So just to take you through the main issues that actually came over from the summit. It was very clear that we needed more access to data. There is a lot happening in terms of research being done by government, by academia, but at the same time, this research is not shared, and sometimes it duplicates the efforts. We also need a year-round engagement and cross-communication between the different stakeholders. So really a need to enhance research, outreach, and initiatives. Also, what transpired was the benefits of connecting global and regional experts. What we can see is that a lot is happening in the region, but when we also bring expertise from abroad, we can work even better together. But also a very big need for financing and financial resources being needed in the country. Specifically, and this is something that Mahal Katan from DP World mentioned this morning, the importance of financing innovation and research. We know that the UAE and the region is a hub at the moment into investing in very well-known technologies, but at the same time, it's harder worldwide to finance very green technologies and innovation. So that was something also that came through the summit. Enabling equitable and just development, and at the same time engaging with youth. So engaging with youth is a very big, important aspect of the UAE. Here, for the first time at COP28, youth is taking a center stage. We have the first ever COP with a youth hub and a youth pavilion. As a government, we have a very big empowering of the youth through youth circles and youth councils. So this is something that we also want to, within the ocean networks and ecosystem, highlight and hopefully empower as well. Most importantly also, it was really clear that we need to turn the tide on SDG 14. Another thing that His Excellency Peter Thompson highlighted this morning is that the oceans are the most important ecosystem we need to protect. And there is not enough awareness and not enough visibility, not enough push on it. As he said, we are the last pavilion at the end of the blue zone. It would be great to see more visibility on what's happening to the oceans and the action taken on it. So a collective effort is needed. This summit in June really highlighted this, and it pushed Gumbuk and the wider community of partners to come together once again and transform the summit into a network that unites the whole region. In the MENA, we are blessed to have so many different bodies of water, from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, to the Arabian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, Gulf of Oman, and the Indian Ocean. This is incredible, and it's a very rich variety and different ecosystems, and it's an opportunity for the region to shine and show the work being done and shared with the rest of the world. So we are very honored to be here today to launch the MENA Oceans Network at the Ocean Pavilion. Thank you very much to the Ocean Pavilion for hosting us today. And I would like to invite my colleague Anu, who will come and explain and better illustrate what this network is about and how you can engage. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm very happy to share now the foundational framework which we have developed for the MENA Oceans Network. As Tatiana has mentioned, this has been in the works for almost a year now. The summit gave us an opportunity to really understand what some of the issues that key stakeholders within the ocean link ecosystems were facing. And here we are 6 months down. We're launching the framework for the network. Over the next few months, we will be inviting all of our stakeholders to join us in technical discussions as we finalize this framework. So as you can see, the network is being established to address a crucial systemic gap, wherein we're trying to unify diverse stakeholders regionally and enable progress on SDG 14, which has historically lacked attention, not just in the region, but globally. And this is an effort to accelerate action on ocean link challenges, and therefore an invitation to leaders, decision makers, the private sector, the academia, research institutions, and the community at large to collaborate with ideas, solutions, and resources. Our objectives are pretty simple here. We've launched the network with a vision to unite. We often see that policymakers are, working in silos in the UN and in the ministerial rooms. We see that academia and the research institutions are engaging on a lot of groundbreaking research, which is giving us a lot of more information on the ecosystems that are so challenged with our extreme climate. But then we're not seeing this translating into action and engagement from the different stakeholder groups. So we're aptly positioning the network to enable and influence this sort of knowledge sharing and on-ground interventions, wherein we will prioritize cross-sectoral approaches to ensure sustainable management of our seas and blue economies. Okay. Our objectives are simple. We want to establish this as a regional hub. Our ecosystems are not independent, they are interdependent, and therefore the way we approach them needs to mimic this interdependency as well. We are looking at unifying policies and actions, therefore, at a regional level. This action will be driven on systemic gaps that our members and partners will identify and prioritize with consensus. My colleague Tatiana has mentioned that we're a social enterprise. We're not a massive UN body here, but we are looking at collaborating with everyone within the ecosystem to really establish established priorities. So we're not going to be a network which is 100 members strong, but a few members who will commit to specific objectives through working groups. Fostering innovation and technology is important because I think the OECD forecasts that the blue economy is going to be worth $3 trillion by 2030. And therefore, we expect that innovators of tomorrow who will actually be successful and the ones who will have the highest impact will prioritize and be inspired by nature-based solutions. So this is how we will translate this into ocean action. And facilitating exchange of data, research, and scientific expertise. We're trying to take action here. We're trying to have a framework and a pathway for SDG 14, but then when we cannot see the baseline, I don't think we'll be able to establish how far we've come at the end of the day. All of this will be enabled on a digital resource platform, which is going to be a one-stop shop for all of the information that you need on key indicators for the MENA region. So we are putting together a system which is going to prioritize and enable a mechanism wherein everyone will be able to feed in data. And this is not just people within the ministry or within the research institutes, but there are a lot of private sector organizations which are also working on amazing projects. They have a lot of data available. So we're going to develop this into a framework where data can be verified and uploaded for everyone to have access. And again, the youth and community engagement, I believe we have an opportunity, one of the greatest ones of our times, to develop leaders who are going to be emerging from these challenges. The way the network is going to be structured is we realize that to adopt a regional view, to adopt a regional framework, we will not be able to do this without the ministries and government bodies really endorsing the network and the UN bodies enabling, translating these projects on the ground. The patrons are going to be the institutions that fund the network administration and the outreach and mobilization programs. And the network members, we invite all of the private sector organizations, innovators in ocean link startups, academic and research institutions, not-for-profits, and also thematic and regional networks and associations who already work with a very collaborative approach on certain factors. If we look at the pillars of engaging, how the network will operate, the key modality is going to be through working groups. Every member who joins on from whichever stakeholder group needs to commit to at least one of the working group or focal areas that we're going to be establishing within the network. I'll take you through that in a bit. For the members, I think working together on the digital platform virtually with face-to-face sessions is a priority. We are starting this network with a mandate to begin data collection and to begin the sharing of scientific research, and then connecting some of the pipeline projects which are on the ground, connecting them with enablers, so whether it's expertise, whether it's financial, non-financial resources, that's what the members are going to work on. Through the network, very uniquely, the members are also going to have a massive opportunity to engage with the community. We don't just want the learnings to be for people within the network and for the members only. The members here have a chance to host satellite events and seminars across the MENA region and also enable an ocean citizenship program for the youth. We envision the ocean citizenship to actually be one of the most ambitious ocean literacy projects that we're going to be launching digitally and physically for different for the youth of our region. And I think we'll be able to share more in the coming weeks as the partnerships are sealed. And then at the MENA Ocean Summit, which is an annual, it is with the patronage of the UAE's Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. We are going to commemorate World Oceans Day every year, but not just through talks and brainstorming. We're going to bring the working groups to convene through side meetings and then understand what has been the progress we've achieved, what are going to be our priorities for the coming year. This is still on the drawing board. This is still up for technical discussions. But the way the network's focal areas are sort of split are in two major categories. There is the biodiversity and nature-based solutions, wherein the members will be working on specific ecosystems, because we're talking to different countries who work along, like the Red Sea, the Arabian Gulf, the Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea. We are splitting these up so that experts and countries which work on these ecosystems can start right ahead and start the data collection process. And then we have separate thematic groups which are based essentially on industry-led solutions, wherein industries can, tackle pollution, whether we start with plastics, wastewater, desalination and groundwater challenges, or the maritime and shipping industry, which is one of the founding partnerships that we're actually launching with next month, and then fisheries and agriculture. So as we go on each year, we're going to be having more and more working groups which will be identified based on priorities within each country, and then what's happening globally as well. So this is, in short, the framework of the network. I think to better understand the challenges, we do have a panel discussion planned, but we're very honored to have in this room today Ambassador Peter Thompson, who will be able to share a bit of his experience, a bit of his year's work, and I think give us some direction for the network going forward. So we'd love to hear from you, Ambassador Thompson. It's an honor to have you here in the room today.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and all courtesies observed. Great pleasure to be given this opportunity. You know, if I think about the geographical spread of ocean work around the world, and I've been doing this for a long time, the United Nations. I was president of the G77 for 1 year, toughest job at the UN, I would say, 134 developing countries. And obviously through a couple of UN Ocean conferences now, I have a good sort of global perspective of where the effort is coming from and where the engagement is happening. Some of you will be surprised to know that you know, China is probably the most engaged I've seen on SDG 14 and the UN Decade of Ocean Science. I go up there fairly regularly. That would be a surprise to some, but there's huge engagement in China on these. Pacific Islands, obviously, I come from Fiji, and we're fully engaged. We have to, because it's an existential matter for some of our countries, which are atoll republics. So when I look at that, I have to say, I think that the Middle East is missing. And when I say missing, what I mean is, you know, in terms of leadership, engagement, you know, if I think of all the various panels and the various conferences and so on that are held, you know, it's not, it has not been present in a big way. I was in Morocco a few weeks ago. Morocco is an exception. Morocco is very engaged. And apart from that, I was in Oman a couple of years ago. Oman is very ocean-oriented as well. But, you know, here we are in the Gulf, which, you know, in many ways is, you know, at the heart of the climate change problem because of with the oil and gas industry, along with a lot of other places, of course. And it must be part of the solutions, must be part of the transition. And one thing that I know for sure is these solutions and the transition are not going to happen without the full engagement of the ocean. What I mean by the full engagement of the ocean is our full engagement with the ocean, because that's where so many of the solutions lie for future generations. So I guess I'm urging through this meeting today, because I know that some of you are reporting back to government, some of you are setting up NGOs to spread the word in the region. But the word is, get involved. And there are a number of really positive things happening in terms of world governance of ocean. You know, if you think of things like the BB&J treaty signed in New York recently, or the WTO fisheries subsidies negotiations happening in Geneva, or the plastic pollution treaty happening in Nairobi at the moment, or the global biodiversity framework in Montreal. This is all just amazing stuff. 5 years ago, if you had said that this is all going to happen by now, I would have said, no, you're dreaming. But no, it's all happened. So there's this big wave. It's a positive wave going around the planet of ocean action. And we have to ride that wave. We've got to ride it, because that's where hope and for our young ones lies. You know? So we've got to ride that wave. And what riding that wave means is getting your governments involved, number one, because they have to ratify, they have to sign those agreements, and most of them have, but they've got to ratify them, because they don't come into force until they're ratified by the nations. And then, most importantly, they have to be implemented. And implementation is where the challenge lies, of course. But we've, you know, as I say, this is going in the right direction now. And, it, you know, to me, it shows that multilateralism works. maybe not at the geopolitical level, but at these environmental levels, multilateralism is delivering. So we have to ride that wave. I want to mention to you that, because I mentioned that from this podium this morning at a meeting, the elephant in the room, or should we say the great blue whale in the room, is carbon dioxide removal, right? Hey, good to see you. It's the blue whale in the room. Nobody wants to speak about it. Why? Because we're all nature lovers, especially at this end of the COP, right? Right down the end of the street where the nature pavilion is, where us nature people are. We love nature. We don't want to be geoengineers. It seems to us like just a terrible word. But the fact is, we have been geoengineering for the last 100 years or more. All of us in this room have been geoengineers when we travel in cars or fly in planes and all the rest. This is the biggest human experiment in geoengineering there's ever been, changing the atmosphere of the planet with our greenhouse gas emissions and what it is doing to the planet. So much so that IPCC says we have to remove that carbon from the atmosphere or we will not keep to 1.5 degrees. All right, that's black and white in the IPCC report. CDR, carbon dioxide removal, has to happen if we want to stay at 1.5 degrees. And do we want to stay at 1.5 degrees? Yes, obviously. If we don't, places like Tuvalu go out of existence. And all your sea levels rise here, you have to reinvest in all your desalination plants and ports and everything else, because sea levels are going to rise after 1.5, along with all the other disastrous things that are going to happen as we go towards 2 degrees and 3 degrees. So carbon dioxide removal is the great big blue whale in the room. And we have to, as nature-loving people, start engaging with CDR. We've got to take that to the center of climate action talks, that it has to happen sooner rather than later. Now, if you start examining those, and we've got some real experts on the subject from China, from America, from Europe, here in this pavilion over the next 2 weeks, start engaging with them. And you will find that there's about 12 techniques which are currently on offer for the marine. They call it marine CDR, MCDR. Some of them are horrific. And as nature lovers, you'd just say, no way will we ever be part of that. Some of them are lower risk, and I'll probably put in that category things like carbon capture and sequestration under the seafloor. It's already being done in Norway, for example. But you need to understand the risks. We all need to understand it. Why? Because this is our planet, and the decisions that are made on these big geoengineering matters are decisions which all of us should be part of. It's going to come down, I guess, to governmental decisions. I mentioned the success of multilateralism on environmentalism, and that's what it'll come down to. But to influence our governments, of course, we have to. The NGOs and other influencers have got to be talking to our governments about what's acceptable to us and what is not. And that does provoke change. It's changing the name of the game from deep sea mining, for example. Up to 30 countries now against deep sea mining. 5 years ago, none. Why? Because the civil society, NGOs, academia, got engaged with their governments. And their governments went to Jamaica and said, no, we'd like a moratorium, thanks. So ratify and implement is the name of the game. And just to conclude, I would say that the other thing that you have to have faith in is ocean science. There is, at the moment, the UN Decade of Ocean Science, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, and I think that this region has a huge amount to offer in that regard. You're bounded by the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Gulf itself. So in a sense, you're just like an island in this part of the world. If you took the continent of Australia, which is actually surrounded by sea, I think Middle East would be a similar sort of size. Again, just rimmed by all these different seas. So what's going on in those seas? You have to understand that. And we only know about 20% of what's actually going on in those seas. So invest in ocean science. That's a big thing the region can do for really advancing global knowledge on ocean science. So I encourage you to do that. And what flows on from investment in ocean science is ocean literacy. And when I talk about ocean literacy, I'm obviously talking about the little kids, but up to adults, right? And sorry for those who've heard me on this before, but I always beat on about the fact that prochlorococcus, which is my logo, is far more important than any lion, tiger, panda, or whatever to the existence of human beings. Why? If all those things went extinct, we'd be sad, you know, sad to see them go. But we only learn about them at school because they're kind of, we relate to them like mammal to mammal, you know. Whereas in the ocean, and 95% of the biomass in the ocean, it's not fishes, it's microbial life, 95%. That microbial life is what keeps us alive. Without it, you know, if we poison it with our chemicals and overheat it or whatever, right? We don't know what its tipping point is. We don't know at the moment. It would be curtains for us. We wouldn't survive on this planet. Because my little logo guy, prochlorococcus, which is the smallest photosynthetic organism, it produces 20% of the oxygen in the biosphere. Prochlorococcus gone, we're gone too. So you get my point about ocean science, ocean literacy. That's what we should be teaching our kids. Not about lions and tigers and pandas, about the microbial life in the ocean, because it's the basis of life on the planet. And I will conclude on that note of the youth, because you know, the Secretary General of the United Nations is at the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon. He apologized to the youth of the world for what we're bequeathing to them, you know, a world of fire and plague and storms of incredible intensity, all because we're heading towards this 3-degree world. And he gave the promise that we're all going to work to turn away from that, to try and hang on to 1.5, which is a livable world for them. You know, and I'm talking, I don't know how many of you have children, but my 3-year-old grandchild lives with me. And you know, on current path, we are consigning her and your kids to that unlivable world. You know, just think about it, you know, and then you realize you have to change. The other thing that he said was that henceforth youth should be part of the decision making. You know, you've got to have young people. When you're setting up your organization, make sure young people are there. Not advocates, suitably qualified youth people. You know, if I'm in a fisheries meeting, a guy who's got a PhD in fisheries who happens to be 24 years old, is a hell of a lot more useful at the table than me because I don't have that qualification. And secondly, he's going to live with the consequences of the decision we make at that table. I'm not going to live with it. So that's why youth has to be involved and you're setting up now, set up early with that firmly in your mind. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Thompson. We take your word very seriously. I think the panelists we're calling up next represent the youth. That's fine. I'll take it later. Thank you. So to throw light on some of our regional challenges and opportunities, I'd like to call upon our esteemed panelists for the next session. They have been strong partners along this journey where we've developed MENA Oceans as a vehicle to really execute and implement all of these ideas that we've been putting on paper so far. I'd like to call on stage Dr. Raidan Al-Sakaf, economist and technical lead for COP28 preparations at the UN UAE office, to moderate and lead this discussion with our other strong partners.
Thank you. How are we doing for time? Okay. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. That's a hard act to follow. Nonetheless, we'll give it our regional perspective. I'd like to invite my co-panelists. Please come and join me to the panel. And I'll invite you to introduce yourselves as well. There's the mic over there. So to make this short and sweet, given that time restrictions, let me start by a quick overview in terms of why this is important for us in our region, how we need to take some serious steps on this. Today is a day of excitement. We're opening COP28 today. We saw the mantle pass less than an hour ago. And now we want to see what it is that we can contribute at COP28 in relation to the oceans agenda and oceans work. So on that note, maybe perhaps I can start with Dr. Al-Malla. I went through NOAAT's website, your organization's website, and I was deeply impressed by your level of ambition. So please tell us more about your vision. What do you see happening?
Thank you very much. My name is Reem Al-Maalla, and I'm actually a marine biologist from Bahrain. I've established NUWAT for environmental research and education. So the word NUWAT is the Arabic word for the English word nucleus, which basically is the heart of every living cell. So what does the heart of every living cell embodies? It embodies our genetic makeup, half of which we inherit from our ancestors. So the idea is to channel that wisdom of our ancestors. But the other half is about our choice of what we choose to do today, bring together the knowledge of today to create a better tomorrow. Because people will tell you sometimes things are genetics. That's true, but what are we doing about it to change it? And that is where NUWAT, basically how we operate. And so just to talk just a bit about how we're looking at things. We're looking at things through marrying our local indigenous knowledge. As the Gulf, a lot of people forget that we have a very strong Arabian connection to all of the ecosystems around us, which you can see in our names. So for example, my name is Reem, and Reem is the Arabian gazelle that roams around the deserts. You have a lot of men's names like Sagar, Falcon, and so many others. But then people forget science. And so thank you so much, Ambassador, for bringing the importance of science. How do we marry local knowledge with what we know today?
Well, thank you very much, Reem, for that. I'd like to drill you down further. Can you give us some examples in terms of how do you see this vision realized?
So basically, as NUWAT, we see ourselves as, we're a think tank, so we look at the challenges we have in our region, whether it's in Bahrain or around the Gulf, because we're deeply connected. The ocean has connected us. The Gulf, before we had our borders put in, we were always the Arabian Peninsula. A lot of our indigenous people are Arab Bedouins, which moved around. I myself am half Emirati and half Bahraini, and it's people are always like, which one are you more? And I'm like, I can't really say that because I'm going to have a problem at home, But the point being is, for example, one of the things that we do is ecological data generation. And it's exactly like Ambassador Thompson was saying. In 2012, there was a report that was published by the UN saying that the Gulf was the most, what's the English word? Non-sufficient scientific data region in the entire world. And at that point, I was in my third year just coming out of university. It was my third year working on the field. I'm a scientific diver. And when I started working in the Gulf, I realized, there's a lot that we didn't know. And in 2012, I don't know if a lot of you remember this, but COP18 was hosted in Qatar. So it was the first time the COP came to our region and people started talking about climate change. And yet, in this region, we live the temperatures that is already projected by the IPCC report for the rest of the world. So I dive in waters that is 37 degrees every summer. So I'm already living everyone else's future, And then people ask me, oh, how are you doing out there? And I'm like, well, do you want to join me? And I'll show you your future, And so that is where the idea of stemming, of actually working on generating this ecological data. And I'll just give you one example. There's a lot I can talk about, but I'm very conscious of time. Number one, we're looking at shark populations in our region. And this is something that we're doing with our collaborators in the UAE and many other countries in the Gulf. Why? Sharks' bodies, 10 to 15% of their tissues is made out of carbon. So when they naturally die in the ocean, they take it to the depths, so they're natural carbon sinks. But when we catch them or take them out of their ecosystems, we release the emissions into the air. And this is just one very small example. So for us to actually learn a bit more about these populations, their migration, where they live, their nursery grounds, these are all things that we still don't know much about, especially in Bahrain, for example. And just the second example is we're looking at climate vulnerability of our species. So we know that coral around the world bleaches after temperatures pass 32 degrees. Whereas in Bahrain and in the UAE and in Kuwait, they're happy at 35. It's happy days. Life is good. 36, I'm a bit stressed, but I'm still okay. 37, okay, guys, how long can I do this? 38, okay, I think I'm going to die now. So the question is, what's going to happen after 38? The rest of the world can't tell us that. Only we in the Gulf can tell the rest of the world that. And that is where the power is, uncovering the scientific data.
Thank you very much for that powerful example. I think we have a lot to contribute and we're only touching the surface. I'd like to move on now to our colleague, Dr. Ahmed, and please, in your answer also, tell us about your work. My question to you is that as a policy maker who works on this area and quite passionate about it, how can such a network, as we just discussed, help you advance your goals and your lobbying in your own organization?
Yes. Thank you, Raidan. First, I'd like to thank the organizer for having this event. My name is Ahmed Al-Hashmi, Executive Director for Biodiversity from Environment Agency, Abu Dhabi. I think my colleagues also tackled a lot of the points that I want to mention. And actually, what is grabbed me to this field is that one day I saw one diver wearing a shirt of diving, and behind him it's written, "We just discovered 1% of the oceans." They said, "Okay, welcome to the 99." So this has attracted me really to go and dive and to discover our oceans. Our oceans is very critical, as His Excellency mentioned, that is supervised with many countries, and without a clear collaboration and a partnership, we will never ever able to protect and to preserve our ocean. Our ocean is so high. Before 2 years, we recorded 39 Celsius degree, and as she said, some of them of the coral dead, but most of them are so happy. So what we did, we select the most resilient corals on the earth. This is my term. And we propagate them underwater, and they are the most resilient where they are capable to survive. This year, the most resilient coral reefs within the hot summer for the first time, they just impacted by 5%. And if I compare it to the rest of the coral reefs, usually worldwide they are degraded up to 50%. So I think the future is here, as you mentioned, and Arabian Gulf is being considered as the hottest sea on earth according to some of the publications. And we consider it the climate change laboratory. Therefore, we took also a decision to have the most advanced research vessel in the Middle East, J1. J1 is the name of the most expensive pearl. So I asked one of the experts, and he's old, and I told him, why you call J1 to the most expensive and best pearl? And he told me there is a story behind it. In the past, we used to take the pearl oyster and we send it to Japanese for grading. And they choose grade 1, they call it G1 for the best pearl. So they call it G1, G1. And now we use G1 in Arabic, but we don't know that it's... So G1 is the most advanced in Middle East, and we built it in Spain. Because we believe that we are sharing the same oceans and corridors, we started our first research, and we are hungry for research. Beginning December of 2022, we started 2 international expeditions from Vigo up to Abu Dhabi. We focus on air quality and also on microplastic. They are so key, and we have very interesting results that we will present it in the coming days. So there is a need. This platform, I think it will be very important, and we are inviting everyone to be part of the solution, government, private, and also individuals. I want to conclude that the former of United Arab Emirates, late Sheikh Zayed, he have very famous quote at the beginning and establishment of our country. He said, protecting environment is not the responsibility of the governments, it's the responsibility of each citizen live on this land.
That was well put. Thank you very much. I'd like to follow up a little bit on that, because you mentioned we and you mentioned citizens. But I'd like to talk about institutions. We know, for example, who the largest polluters on Earth are, and we know where the key issues are. So can you tell us more about the institutional setup that you're thinking about and working on in relation to biodiversity protection in the UAE?
Yeah. So I will elaborate more about Abu Dhabi. We are believing that it's a partnership. I will just give a history of our organization. It started in early 90s as a research authority. At that time, there is a huge gap in information. And without information, without knowledge and data, you can't take any single decision. And I remember at the beginning of my career, I sat with the private sector and saying, guys, we need to protect the turtles. He said, you know, Ahmed, even if all the turtles are dying, what will harm me? To be honest, it shocked me. I didn't prepare for that question. Then I said, I need to understand what is the connection between me and the turtles and the fish. And here where we need really to emphasize on having a lot of data and information. Moreover, the responsibility couldn't be for the government. So what we did, even management of the protected area, we delegated also to the private sector. What we find that if you give the accountability to the private sector and also to the public, you will be surprised. One of the stories we have it in Abu Dhabi, rescuing animals, in the past years it was responsibility for the government. Recently we have a partnership in 2020 with the National Aquarium. It's a private sector. And we work with them to establish one of the largest turtle rehabilitation centers. We call it in the Middle East, but I didn't find it in the world. I think it's in the world. In 1 year, we were able to rescue and rehabilitate and retain back 200 species of individuals of sea turtles. In the last 3 years, we were able to retain 800 sea turtles back to the ocean. So there is a great opportunities, great efforts. In J1, we established a platform for science and knowledge. We invited all the universities and academics to be part of it. And we surprised with a few days of callings. I can't say how many, like in 1 day we have 16 proposals from the universities to be part of it. What has surprised us, the private sector, they said we are willing really to fund all of this. There is an integration system. There is an integrated governance. We need really to re-study it very well. And I think in this way, we will really succeed. Citizen science, we have many platforms. Recently, we launched one of the applications. We call it Environmental Eyes, in Arabic, Uyun Bi'iyya. What we did, we want the public to be our eyes. So we developed an e-courses for them. So this is a criteria that they need really to pass it. And after they pass it, they are able to have an access to an application and to report any violation to be considered. In the past, we have a lot of issues. How to deal with the government, with the public, because we have many calls. I remember one of the calls, they said, there is one guy who was selling sea turtles, and we drive 250 kilometers just to check, and we find it a normal freshwater turtle. He said, yo, you know, by the photo, so increasing the awareness, building the capacity, you will be surprised about the amount of responsibility of everyone.
Well, thank you very much for saying that and sharing your experience. I said today is the first day of COP28, and we're starting with a ton of optimism. And I hope that you will all share with me, building on these fantastic efforts, that we'll be able to make an excellent dent in this regard. So thank you very much for joining us for this panel. And I'd like to invite Agnes to take us forward.
Thank you, Redon. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Dr. Reem. We now like to call upon Ignas. Ignas is the Ocean and Coastal Zones lead with the UN High-Level Climate Champions team. And we've been working very strongly with him through the year to try and understand how we can really create the network as an instrument to deliver on the ocean breakthrough goals. So I'd like to call upon Ignas, who can share a little more about his work and his vision for the network.
Thank you, Anu. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I just landed, so still recovering from the flight. But I think when I joined the MENA Ocean Network on June 8 here in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, it was, we can really feel the momentum in the room and the excitement of the stakeholders from the region on what is at stake for the ocean and how it can be part of the solution for the region, and how can, as Peter Thompson said, really step up this part of the world into one of the most important source of solution on climate but sustainable development in general. what I particularly like with the vision of the MENA Ocean Network is the sense of collaboration across stakeholders and networks. This is really what is at the core of our mission with the high-level climate champions. I'm working with and for Her Excellency Razan Al Mubarak for COP28 and Dr. Mahmoud Hildin for COP27. And really what we are doing in the spirit of the MENA Ocean Network is to try to galvanize energies from various pieces of civil society, businesses, financial institutions, cities, regions, working with governments to try to create energy in unlocking some solutions. The ocean in the UNFCCC processes has seen some great progress over the year. From COP25, where we established the first, when parties established the first ocean and climate dialogue within the formal process, until COP26 with some recognition in the text, some progress at COP27. Now I think we are all coming with great hope at COP28. The Ocean Pavilion is here to galvanize the community. As you know, under the leadership of Razan Al Mubarak, the nature in general, including ocean, is being put strongly on the main stage of COP28. So we have strong hope. Of course, it lies on the negotiators to make the next step in making the ocean truly part of the solution, and how do we include it in the response to the global stocktake. This is really that core at stake for all of us. Today we can, all meet to try to, progress on our respective initiative, but really believe what we all should look toward is how can we make sure that negotiators are including the ocean properly with clear objective and sense of direction in the global stocktake response. This is how we can really anchor all the work that this community has been doing through the years. We are working with through the Marrakesh partnership with many organizations, try to organize a little bit this ocean climate narrative and make it progress. We've seen positioning the ocean as part of the solution to climate at COP26, COP27, but at COP28 we are coming with, I would say, a new product that hopefully will help energize the discussion, inform the global stocktake, what we call the ocean breakthroughs. It's a set of 5 pathways that have been defined by, on the science, by the science, on how can we really accelerate and tap into the full potential of the ocean for climate, across marine conservation, shipping, coastal tourism, seafood, aquatic food production, and ocean renewable energy and offshore wind. And these pathways are really aiming to bring governments and non-state actors towards the same trajectory. So what are we collectively aiming to do by 2030? Because we believe if we reach these targets by 2030, we'll reach a tipping point in this sector, in this ecosystem, and the ecosystem will reach sufficient maturity to really see an exponential change. For instance, when you take a specific topic that is very close to people here in the UAE, mangroves, we know that we have to restore 15 million hectares, 15 million hectares of mangrove by 2030. This will cost us globally $4 billion. If we are achieving these goals by 2030, we'll have set, the supply of projects of mangrove at the scale, the demand. We will have better, regulation from the government side. We'll have more financial institutions coming. So you create basically confidence in the markets to invest. And this is what we are aiming with these breakthroughs. Is that governments can come together to align with these targets, hopefully, reference them in the global stocktake, and non-state actors are joining forces. And this is where we can see, real system change. So I come here with great hopes. Hopefully, COP28 will make a precedent in including nature as core of the climate solution, and within it, obviously, the largest ecosystem on Earth, ocean, will play a big part. So thanks for inviting me, and good luck to the MENA Ocean Network.
Thank you very much, Ignace, and thank you so much for our panelists for being here today. I know it's the first day, and we're very excited for COP28 to really announce actions on very many different fronts. As you've heard so far, there are challenges, but there are also great opportunities. The region can play an important role, not only locally, but also globally, as I love, you mentioned, being the climate change laboratory. It's definitely a call to action for academia, for research and science, but for private sector and government also to come together and unite and share knowledge and share data. And so it's also a call to action to everyone here in the room and hopefully to many more people and entities to join the network for collaborative effort and hopefully to achieve great action, find solutions, fund innovation, and empower youth in the region and beyond. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Your Excellency, for making the time, and for all our panelists who reached on time and collaborated today for this launch. And thank you for Anu for putting together all this event. Thank you. Yes, a group picture. Thank you.